right. Welcome to the first ever episode of CFB Only. I'm your host, Deep Shot Garry. If some of you are sitting here wondering, going, Deep Shot Garry, you're the guy that does Deep Shot Sports, right?
All right.
Yep.
Welcome.
I've got the sound on the YouTube that I'm also watching here. Sorry about that. But, yes, this is not Deep Shot Podcast, though. All right? If you know what Deep Shot Podcast is, thank you. You've been paying attention. You're part of the channel. But this is separate. Deep Shot Podcast is over because football season's over. It's a seasonal show. So now I've got too much juice, too much college football in me, too much want in me to stop. So this is our new show, CFB Only, live on YouTube, 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. This will be a weekly show. We may do this bi-weekly the more we get going, but thank you for being here to start. Two reasons I'm doing this. One, I love college football, like I just mentioned. It's my favorite sport, and I'm not going to talk about the NFL or the NBA or the Olympics. Sorry, that's just not what we're going to do here. But what I will do is talk about college football, and we've got a packed show today. We've got top 10 impact transfers, okay? The ones that are make the biggest impact on their team this upcoming season. I posted a list on Instagram. I'm going to pull that up here shortly. We've also going to go over to UGA and Ohio State schedules for this upcoming season. That should be a good discussion. Just kind of going to review them. We're not going to really make any picks, not going to do any wins and losses, but we're going to go over them. Top 10, way too early top 10. Everybody's got a way too early top 25s. I can only do a top 10 for right now. And we're going to talk about the playoffs scheduled for 2026, 2027. I know a lot of people got some opinions on that. Really excited. Thanks for guys for being here. Before we get going, just want to ask that you do follow the Deep Shot Sports on Instagram and TikTok. We are getting very, very close to having 3,000 followers. I think last time I checked, I'm at 2,940. So I really appreciate everybody being a part of this. I really appreciate everything. Make sure you guys follow. If you're not followed, tell your friends, tell your mom, your dad, whoever else. Sorry, trying to look at the chat here. I see some people in the chat, so just want to say thank you to you guys for that. Let me pull it up here so I can get a little more into it. Shout out Jake. Shout out Down South Media, Adam G. I see you guys in the chat. But, yes, follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Subscribe to YouTube as well. Trying to get to 500 followers ASAP. And with your help, I think we can do that. All right, first thing we're going to talk about here, top 10 transfers. Now, before I pull up this list, I want everybody to know, I mean in terms of the impact they're going to make to the team. They're going to come in, plug-and-play guys. I think these guys are going to do really well. So, if you think you've got a better list, you can put it in the chat. Go ahead. I'd love to have some discussion. You know what? Let me go ahead and just ask you guys in the chat while I'm here. Let me get interactive here. What's your top 10? Let's go ahead and ask you guys. What your top 10 is. All right, so here we go. Let me pull up the list here. Top 10 transfers. I posted this on the Instagram the other day. If you follow Deep Shot Sports, you probably saw it, but let's go ahead and go over it. Let me take a sip of water. Got to stay hydrated. All right, number one on my list is Cam Coleman. Look, if you don't know who Cam Coleman is, he's been hiding away at Auburn. Look, if you know SEC, if you watch SEC football, if you're in the weeds of it and you watch those 5 and 7 teams that Auburn's been throwing out there, you know who Cam Coleman is, okay? He is a awesome receiver, 5-star coming out of high school, and has been tucked away in Auburn, Alabama. The last 2 years, 93 catches, 1,306 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Now, that's across 2 seasons. And that's with guys like Jackson Arnold and Ashton Daniels throwing in the ball, okay? Imagine if we had some real quarterback play, which he's going to Texas to get. Arch Manning is in year 2 of the starting quarterback position. I think this is really going to help their offense a lot. He is a freak of nature, Cam Coleman is. Think about Zach Branch going to UGA. Now, obviously, Zach Branch and Cam Coleman are totally different players. They're not the same size. They're not the same receiver. But the type of impact that Zach Branch had at UGA is the type of impact I think Cam Coleman's going to be having at Texas. So make sure you guys pay attention to what Cam Coleman will do. I think he's arguably the number 1 player in the portal. I think he's going to have the best impact, and he's going to make Texas a dangerous team. Number 2, Darian Mensah. Look, if you've been living under a rock, if you don't pay attention to college football, Darian Mensah was the quarterback at Duke this past season, and then before that was the quarterback at Tulane. He had a really good season at Duke. His stats last year at Duke, 3,973 yards, 34 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So he was re-signed to Duke, Well, basically, if you know the rules, right? You go in there, we can take whoever we want. That's what Miami did. Doesn't matter if you're signed. And now Darian Mintz is going to Miami. With those stats, he had 500 attempts, 500 pass attempts last year. He had the most pass attempts in the ACC. So he's used to got to silence the phone. Got ESPN notifications. Detroit. If you didn't know, Detroit's losing their bowl game. We'll talk about that a little later. But he's used to carrying the load. He's used to having to throw the ball out. Well, guess what? He's going to Miami. He's got Mark Fletcher. He's got Malachi Toney. He's going to have a good offensive line. I think the pressure of having to be the only guy on the team notable is going to be taken off. I think he's going to be really good. Third year in a row, Miami's having a transfer quarterback. Obviously, Cam Ward, Carson Beck, and now Darian Mintz. Number 3, Princeville Umam. I'm not going to try to mispronounce the last name here, so we're not going to do that. But Princeville going to LSU. He's from Ole Miss. He had 9 sacks last year at Ole Miss and 13 tackles for loss as well. If you didn't know, this guy was at Nebraska the 2 years before he was at Ole Miss last year. Not sure what they were doing with him at Nebraska, but this is his 4th year of college football. And this is big because LSU is losing Harold Perkins, so they're going to need a plug-and-play guy in on the edge spot. He's familiar with Lane Kiffin, and to think about, he's going to go in there with a guy like Whit Weeks playing behind him at linebacker. Blake Baker is renowned for being one of the best defensive coordinators in the country right now. So I think this is a really good pickup for the LSU Tigers and Lane Kiffin. Just checking out the chat. No, there's no. I don't like the names I'm being seen in the chat. All right, number 4, Byron Brown. Now, I may be higher on this guy than a lot of other people, but Byron Brown was a quarterback at South Florida. He's been there for 4 years, so this would be his 5th year of college football. He's really only played 2 complete seasons. He had some injury-plagued years. So this past season, 2025 and 2023, are his 2 full seasons. But across the 4 years, he's got 7,690 passing yards, 61 passing touchdowns to 19 interceptions. He's also ran for 2,265 yards and 31 touchdowns. And this past season, he ran for 1,000 alone. So he knows Alex Golish's offense. He's going to be familiar with him. He's a big guy, 6'3", 230 pounds. I may be higher on him than others. I may talk about this a little later. I'm kind of high on Auburn. I think Auburn is going to be better than what we've seen with Hugh Freeze. I think they're going to have a different attitude, and I think it starts with this guy at quarterback. I'm just saying, he could be real dangerous. Number 5, Jordan Seaton. Now, this is an offensive lineman. You know, we're not going to have a lot of stats, but what I will tell you, he's been two years at Colorado. He was a 5-star coming out of high school. Freshman All-American his first year at Colorado, and last year he had a 91.4 pass block grade per PFF. Number 1 out of all offensive linemen. Look, they've got 3 people on this list, LSU does. They're going to need offensive linemen to protect the quarterback, and this is one of the best offensive linemen you could get anywhere. And so that's where he ends up, is LSU. Everyone would have wanted him, and I think that's a big impact there that they're going to have in Baton Rouge. Number 6, Chaz Coleman. Now, this is a deep freshman last year from Penn State. Didn't play a lot of games. Only played in 5 games last season, or appeared in 5 games. 2 fumble recoveries, a forced fumble, a pass deflection, 8 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack. So he's stuffing the stat sheet in those 5 games. Now, Penn State obviously kind of fell off last year, so he wasn't really participating a lot. But he was a high recruit. He's following Jim Knowles to Tennessee, so he's familiar with the defensive coordinator. And Tennessee had a rough defense last year, right? So he's going to go in there and know the coach and kind of make an impact, because there's not a lot of defensive edge players at Tennessee that were worth anything last year, right? So he's going to be coming there making an immediate impact, I think. Watch out for him. That's all I'm going to tell you. Number 7, Sam Levitt. Personally, like going into this past season, I wasn't really that high on Sam Levitt, and he didn't really get to do anything. He only played 7 games. Arizona State was kind of out of the mix. He didn't have bad stats this season. He only has just over 60% completion percentage in his career. That's got to go up. But I put him here because I believe he will make a huge impact in a Lane Kiffin offense. I think Lane Kiffin obviously has a lot to do with this. It's going to make everything a lot easier for him. So I have mildly to mildly high expectations for him because of the coach and where he's going. He's going to have a good offensive line as well. I'll talk about that with the number 5 pick there. Damon Wilson II at number 8. This is a former Georgia Bulldog, and he spent the last season at Missouri. Bag chaser, all first-team bag chaser. Okay, if you don't know this guy's story, he is, kind of getting sued by Georgia because he owes money there. He went to Missouri. Now he's at Miami, who obviously we know spends a lot of money on players. But on the football field, the guy's a beast. Last year at Missouri, had 9 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. This is his 4th year in college football, so he's super experienced. He is going to probably be the fastest guy in the ACC on the defensive side of the ball in terms of the front sevens. This guy is quick, can get from side to side easy. He's going to wreak havoc against ACC offensive linemen. I'm telling you right now, he's going to be a star. My number 9, Drew Mestemaker. This guy was the quarterback for North Texas last season. Look, if you haven't heard this guy's story, it is actually insane. He basically didn't play football at all in high school. Like, he was a backup the entire time, and then got to North Texas, was the 5th-string quarterback, and somehow when the season started around, he became the starter. Last year threw for 4,379 yards, first in the FBS, 34 total touchdowns, 69% completion percentage. Just incredible. It was an awesome season for North Texas, and now his coach left, Eric Morris, so now he's going to Oklahoma State with his head coach. He's playing Big 12 defenses. He's 6'4", 210. I think he'll fit in perfect with Oklahoma State, and I don't know if I want to call Oklahoma State like a Big 12 title contender, but I think the offense will do pretty well. And to round out my top 10, it's going to be Justice Haynes. Look, this guy was the best running back in college football last year before he got hurt at Michigan. Let me tell you his 2025 game log. We've got 159 yards, 125 yards, 104 yards, 149 yards, 117 yards, 51 yards, and 152 yards, 10 touchdowns, 7 yards a carry. And that's like in 8 games. And he got hurt, and it kind of really sucked for Michigan. They could have really used him down the stretch and maybe have, who knows, beat Ohio State. That's a whole different discussion. But I think this is a really underrated gift for Justice Haynes, one that nobody's really talking about. So that is my top 10. Look, if you've got your own top 10, I'd love to see it. But that's where I rounded out. I really like what I've got out front. And we're going to go ahead and move on. Next thing we're going to talk about, the UGA 2026 football schedule. No secret here. I am a Georgia football fan. Let me read the chat real quick. You think SEC gets a chip next year? And do you think the Big Ten trifecta shirt it was so cool? Adam, the Big Ten trifecta shirt was one of the lamest things I ever seen. I made a video on that as well. If you have not seen the Big Ten trifecta shirt, you need to go check it out. Okay, UGA 2026 football schedule. Before we go and talk about this, I'm really high on what Georgia can do this season. I really am. I think we're going to be just as good as we were last year, if not better. We were a young team. We've won the SEC twice in a row, and we're going to 9 conference games. So we'll see how that impacts everything. But I really like where this team's at. I think we're going to have a really good season coming up. But this schedule, let's go ahead and pull this up here. Give me 1 second, and I'll get it pulled up for the 2026 football schedule. Here we go. All right. Week 1 and Week 2, FCS slop in Athens, Tennessee State, and Western Kentucky. Look, I'm a guy that has previously said many times that I don't think the SEC and the Big Ten and the Big 12 and the ACC, like, we should stop playing these terrible games. I do believe we were supposed to play UCLA and then they canceled it, so that's why we're playing one of these 2 games. But we're getting further and further into the weeds of how the playoff set up and everything, and I just don't see a reason why we need to be playing FCS teams and G5 teams. But that's a different discussion for a different day. Week 1 and 2 will be throwaways for Georgia football fans, and I'm sure people will complain about why there's no fans in the stadium, and then I'll just let you know I won't be there as well. Okay, so the real season starts Week 3 at Arkansas. Arkansas bringing in a new coach, Ryan Silverfield. I don't think Arkansas has won a game since like Week 2 of last season. They finished 2-10. Last time Georgia went to Arkansas was 2020. That was the first Dwan Mathis start for the Georgia fans that remember that. That was when we wore the white jerseys with the red pants. Stetson Bennett kind of first burst onto the scene there. Will be interesting. Don't really see a lot of struggles there. I wonder like what time slot that's going to be. Is that going to be like an 11 a.m. kick? in Fayetteville. We'll see. Week 4, Oklahoma in Athens. This first time since, I'll give everybody a second to guess, the 2020, or not the 2020, but the 2018 Rose Bowl. The 2018 Rose Bowl that Georgia and Oklahoma are facing up. This, I think, will be a night game in Athens. I haven't seen what else is going on in Week 4, but I have a feeling that Georgia and Oklahoma is going to be a big-time matchup in Week 4. Now, Oklahoma does play Michigan, I believe, in Week 2 this year. So, depending on what happens there, if they win that, they're sitting at 3-0. Georgia's sitting at 3-0. I would assume this would get some big love, big night game, top 15, 10, top 10-ish matchup. Anyway. All right, in Week 5, Vanderbilt. First time Georgia's played Vanderbilt since the expanded SEC happened. So, there's actually a couple on this list that were playing for the first time since that happened, but kind of getting back to an old SEC East type schedule. But they avoided the Diego Pavia years, right? We didn't have to play Diego Pavia at all. Georgia didn't. But now they're playing Jared Curtis. If you don't know who Jared Curtis is, he was committed to Georgia twice at one point. And he, right before, just like many recruits do nowadays, he flip-flopped and went to Vandy. He's from Nashville. He's going to stay in Nashville. And he's going to come to UGA in Week 5. You know, who knows if Vanderbilt's going to be the same. Is Vanderbilt here to stay, or is Diego Pavia just a one-hit wonder? They win the most games they've ever won. That's a big question mark. Week 6 at Alabama. Third year in a row, Georgia and Alabama are playing in the regular season. Ever since the expanded SEC happened, they've played every single season. Look, Greg Sankey and the SEC, I don't blame them for playing this game every single year. This is fireworks, just going to get a lot of ratings. This will 100% be a night game. I don't know how Bama's going to be this year. I haven't really thought too much about that, but I can see why this game is always going to get played, and they're going to match this up because we all know how big this game means to both teams. Week 7, Auburn. I'm glad this one's at home. I've mentioned already that I'm kind of weary of Auburn. I kind of think they're going to be good this year. And with Byron Brown, Alex Golish, who knows what their defense will look like. I just think they're going to be a physical team, and I'm really glad this game's at home. I think we should be able to handle it, but I'm telling you, watch out for Auburn. We'll probably talk about them more on a future episode. Week 8, got a bye week, which we always do before Florida. So then in Week 9, we play Florida in Atlanta, the Invesco QQQ Gridiron Classic, as it's always been called, right? Who needs the world's largest outdoor cocktail party? If you don't know, the Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium is going under renovation for the next 2 seasons. So Georgia's going to play Florida in Atlanta this year, and then in 2027, Georgia's going to play them in Tampa. You know, why play at your home stadiums? I don't know, but we're not. Obviously, John Summerall, Aaron Philo, the backup quarterback for Georgia Tech, has gone to Florida. He'll be there. And Buster Faulkner, the offensive coordinator that was at Georgia Tech last year as well, who used to be on the offensive staff at Georgia's at Florida. That'll be interesting, but fun. The game's going to be Atlanta, Georgia, Florida. I will 100% be there. Week 10, at Ole Miss, third year in a row. Played them every year since the expanded playoff or the expanded SEC conference. Trinidad Chambliss, who knows what's going on with that guy. It seems like he's just going to keep going until they've told him no a million times. He's just going to keep saying no. I want to keep playing. Kirby's gonna be out for a vengeance. Ole Miss does have our number, I guess you could say, 1 and 2 in the last 3 matchups. So that'll be an interesting game. I think we're gonna be ready for that. I think Kirby's gonna be planning for that one all season long. Week 11, Missouri. There's no way that game's gonna be very interesting. I mean, Missouri might be 5-5 at that point. I'm not real high on Missouri coming into this season. Depends what their schedule looks like. First time we played them since 2023. So Vandy and Missouri and this next team we're going to talk about, first time we've all played them since 2023. Like I said, bringing back the SEC East vibe. And then Week 12 at South Carolina. The first time since, again, 2023 we've played these guys. Late in the season, I feel like out of all the times I've ever seen Georgia and South Carolina play a game, it's never been this late. Like, this is really late, and I have a feeling this could be a night game. The only thing about South Carolina, right, is you don't know if this team's going to be, 7-3, looking to play spoiler, if they're going to be 4-6, and like with their season thrown down the drain. We'll see. They've got Lenore Sellers. They've got some guys coming back. They're coming off just an abysmal year where they looked, pitiful. Very pitiful as somebody who tried to support them. So that'll be interesting, but it is wild that is a late season game. And then week 13, Georgia Tech at home. Game is in Athens. I would say that the games that are usually in Athens between Georgia and Georgia Tech are a little more sketchy than the ones that are in Atlanta. I mean, everybody knows the 8 overtime game that happened a couple years ago, but I mean, just kind of look back through the history. It always seems to be a little weird in Athens when these two teams match up. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about, the Ohio State football schedule. As I kind of look here for the chat again, got 6 people watching. Hey, couldn't ask for much more. All right. So Ohio State's football schedule, we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. But before that, just wanted to say the Detroit bowl game got moved, that canceled today. The second bowl games we've had in 1 week. The LA Bowl canceled themselves last week. Detroit canceled themselves today, like as of right before I started recording. Sad. Bowl games, it's going to keep happening. If you're not one of the top tier bowl games, get ready. It's sad to see. So just wanted to update everybody on that. So we'll go ahead and get ready to pull up this Ohio State football schedule here for you guys. I will say, we joke about Big Ten schedules and everything, and the Big Ten is a lot tougher schedule. They've kind of got a tough schedule, relatively, Ohio State. So here we go. Let's pull this up for you guys. Week 1, Ball State. Everyone's got to get their, this isn't even an FCS team. I don't want to disrespect Ball State, but they got to get their G6 games in there. Week 2, at Texas. This will 100% be a night game. Last year, this game was in Columbus, and it was big noon kickoff because the Big Ten loves to bone their best games. I've obviously said nice things about Texas. I think playing this game in week 2 is way better than playing this in week 1 because in week 1, obviously you don't even know what you're going to get. Like, you are putting your team out there. All they've done is practice against each other. And now you play in week 2. You both get to play a little tune-up game and kind of figure out what you got, what your team seems to like, doesn't like. I think that's a really big advantage for both teams. Like, not even Texas and Ohio State playing that game in week 2. I think that's better in the long run for what they're going to accomplish. Week 3, Kent State. Week 4, Illinois, who basically has a whole new squad out there in Champaign. That should not be much of an issue. If Ohio State struggles with Illinois, it's going to be a long year because his schedule gets pretty tough towards the thick of it. At Iowa, who knows with Iowa? If Iowa can score over 20 points a game, we don't know. It doesn't matter who they throw in there. I was one of the guys that was patting Mark Gronowski's head last year, being like, this guy's going to be something, and he was nothing for Iowa. So it'll be interesting. I don't really foresee a big problem there, especially it's at Iowa. That could be big noon kickoff. Maybe it's a night game. Probably going to be big noon kickoff. So that kind of takes the scare away of playing at Iowa. Maryland, let me tell you something about Maryland. I don't think Maryland should be in the Big Ten. Maryland should be like an FCS or a G5 team at this point. I mean, they are the most nothing school of all time. When is the last time Maryland upset somebody of notice or did anything of notice? I would like to know. Somebody tell me. And then week 7, they're going to Indiana. I think this comes at a pretty good point in the season for them. They are already going to Texas, right? And then they're going to Iowa. So they're going to be tested on the road. Like, they are going to have opportunities to kind of learn how to win and win in these big situations. Indiana, I think this will be like pretty much the biggest game they played until at this point of the season. So, Ohio State's got the revenge factor. How does Ohio State react in terms of the way this season ended, losing 2 in a row? I think they'll probably use that as a way to motivate themselves, but we'll see. Week 8, they have a bye week, and then week 9, they go to Southern California. First time they are playing as Big Ten opponents, which is just insane that the Big Ten is just now playing this game. Like, you would think, the two big brands would get to play a little earlier than this, but anyway, USC sneaky team. Had the number 1 recruiting class last year, went 9-3, was kind of fringe Big Ten championship if things went their way. But I think this is a tricky one just because they got to go West Coast, right? The good news is they have a bye week before this, so it's not going to be like short rest or anything. But you look at the history of teams from the East Coast going to West Coast, doesn't usually work out for them very well. And then Oregon at home. So this is a crazy little stretch they got going on right here, right? Week 7 they have Indiana at Indiana, and then they have a bye, and they go to USC, and then they have Oregon. This big thing, this game's at home, because imagine if they had to go back to the West Coast. I don't think they would get screwed like that. But I mean, how will they be? Will they be healthy at this point? This is, late in the season. Oregon's, you would assume, going to be a top 10 team at this point. This obviously seems like a game that's going to be like whoever wins is going to have a really good situation to win the Big Ten, or, at least be in the driver's seat. So that'll be a fun game. Like I said, I think Ohio State's schedule right there this is probably late October, early November. It's pretty intense. Week 11, Northwestern. That's Northwestern. Week 12, at Nebraska. What's going on with Nebraska? That could be a whole segment within itself. Like, Dylan Raiola decided that he was going to leave Nebraska and go back up Dante Moore for a whole season instead of being the starter at Nebraska. Like, how does that happen? Where did that come from? Did anybody, really clock that in their heads that that's what's going on? Anyway, I don't think Nebraska will be much of a scare. It is late in the season. Who knows? But the Matt Rule in Nebraska, just Nebraska in general, seems like a lost program. All right, week 13, they got Michigan. Obviously, they broke a streak last year. That'll be interesting to see. Michigan's a toss-up of a team of what you think they might be. We'll see what happens when we get late in the season. So, again, Ohio State got a kind of tricky of a schedule. I'm not gonna dunk on them too hard. All right, let me take a sip of water. Check out the chat. Shout out Down South Media. Been live. Okay, next thing I want to talk about, way too early top 10. I'm going to put this up here in a second, but we did this on the Deep Shot podcast a couple weeks ago. Obviously, everyone's got a way too early top 10 or top 25, it seems like. I don't know how people can do top 25s, honestly. Like, that seems like so much thought process that I'm not willing to do. So I do top 10s, all right? And we're going to talk about them right here. So pull it up for you guys. Way too early CFB top 10. Number 1, Indiana. Now, this is a respect thing, okay? I am not putting anyone above Curt Cignetti right now until proven otherwise. It would be rude. It would be rude and disrespectful. And I'm telling you, I was somebody who doubted Curt Cignetti a lot throughout the season and throughout really the last 2 years. And then at some point you just have to be like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not disrespecting this guy. So he's number 1. Indiana's number 1. They're going to be good until proven otherwise. Number 2, UGA, again. Say what you want. But I really feel good about this team this season. I really do. Like, they were a young team last year. They could have, if things bounced their way a little bit, could have went on a run. Did not. But Gunnar Stockton's coming back. Nate Frazier is coming back. The offensive line is going to be better. They got a new offensive line coach in there, which I think was a big move. A lot of people were not happy about the offensive line coach that we had. So that's a big change. On the defensive side, guys like Chris Cole, Raymond Wilson, KJ Bolden, Ellis Robinson, Elijah Griffin, who was a young defensive lineman this year, 5-star that people are kind of comparing to Jalen Carter. Like, this defense is going to get back to being really good. Maybe obviously no one's 21, 22, but I think they're going to be really good. Like, I feel good about Georgia going into next year a lot. I really do. Ohio State at number 3. It's the talent's just too much to put anyone else above them. I think obviously you have Jeremiah Smith coming back in year 3. Seemed like things didn't really go for him towards the end of the season. Same thing with Julian Sayin after kind of going to the Heisman ceremony, and then things kind of didn't really go well in the Big Ten championship or the Cotton Bowl. I think they'll have a little chip on their shoulder. We'll obviously find out a lot about them, but in terms of just right now, I think they're obviously one of the better teams in the country. Number 4, Notre Dame. Notre Dame legit might not lose a game this year. I don't know if we want to do a schedule review for them because it's just like reviewing garbage, but they are going to be stacked. They had a really good recruiting class. They had a really good transfer portal class. They're obviously going to have a vengeance on their mind. They're the favorite to win the national championship. If you didn't know that, like, go look at Vandor, DraftKings. Like, they are the favorites to win the national championship next year. CJ Carr coming back. I thought he was pretty good. They're going to be a good team. They are. but I'm not going to put them top 3. That's just a respect thing for me. All right, number 5, Texas. I've talked about Cam Coleman being number 1 impact player. I'm telling you, it's going to make a big difference. Him and Arch Manning. I think Arch Manning's going to be a lot better. I would honestly say Arch would be a Heisman favorite right now. I know, we said that last year. I'm kind of feeling that this year. But one thing that if you don't know, Will Muschamp is now the new defensive coordinator at Texas, and that's a huge deal. Will Muschamp, one of the best defensive coordinators over the last 10, 12, 15 years, however you want to say it. Like, he was obviously the head coach of South Carolina. He was obviously the head coach of Florida. But before he was the head coach of Florida, he was the defensive coordinator at Texas way back when. So he's going back to a familiar spot. And Texas had a good defense last year. Like, they kept them in a lot of games. So they're going to upgrade at the defensive position, which is crazy, or on the defensive side of the ball. They got a guy like Hollywood Smothers that they stole from Alabama in the transfer portal. So I like this team a lot. Okay, number 6, I got Oregon. Dante Moore obviously coming back. He's probably touted as number 1 quarterback in terms of like NFL draft. Dan Lanning is still one of the better coaches. I would say the worst top 4 in my opinion. Hate me if you want. I think he's one of the better coaches in college football. I know he's got to win the big game, but he's won a lot of big games. A lot of injuries last year for Oregon. They still were able to get to the Final Four. Their talent pool is top tier. I still think they're behind Indiana and Ohio State just because it's hard to put them above them right now, but they're still going to be a top 10 team. Number 7, I got Texas Tech. Look, I'm not really that big of a fan of Brendan Sorsby in general because I've watched Cincinnati games last year and he just didn't wow me at all. He seems like if something's not there on the first read, he's running. But what I do know is Texas Tech is going to be stacked. They have so much money. They stacked their defense again. Their skilled players are nice. They've had a really good portal class. Their money they are spending is going to go to use in a really good way. So I think they're going to be just as good. And they're going to be the best team in the Big 12. Like, I don't really see that changing. Number 8, I got Miami. Look, Miami is going to be the best team in the ACC. I kind of said that a little bit earlier. Darian Mensah is going to make a big impact, but having a guy like Mark Fletcher come back, having Malachi Toney come back, who was just a freshman last year. I think he's, just turned 18 or something like that. They're going to be the best team in the ACC. Their offensive line, the problem is you think, like, they're probably going to screw themselves over at some point. They do play Notre Dame, like, late in the season, like November or something like that. So that'll be interesting. But I think they're talent-wise, they're going to be up there. I think they really upgraded the quarterback position too. So, number 9, LSU. This is just based off portal talent. I think in terms of like where LSU could be later on in the season, I don't know. Like maybe their team doesn't mesh well, or maybe things start to fall apart. But I think in terms of right now, there's too much talent on that team. Like to think they're not at least top 10 for right now. So they've got a really solid squad. So I got them at number 9. And number 10, I got USC, number 1 recruiting class last year. They were 9-3 last year, and they lost to Oregon, Notre Dame, and Illinois. The Illinois loss was a last-second field goal. They had come back, made it a game, and then Illinois kind of ripped their hearts out. But Notre Dame and Oregon were 2 of the better teams in college football last season, and USC was able to kind of put up as near as a fight as they could. I think USC is going to be good this season. They had a really good portal class as well. I'm putting them out there. If I had to put some honorable mentions out there, I think Oklahoma is going to be a good team again this year. They really should have beat Alabama in the playoffs last year. It's a whole different discussion, but I think John Mateer will be better. I think they'll improve the run game. I think the defense will be good. And then maybe if we want to throw out one more, Texas A&M should be good, but who knows? They could be the Texas A&M schedules for all I know. So that's my top 10. Take another sip. Got to stay hydrated. Talking by yourself is a lot. All right. Before we get out of here, wanted to do thoughts on the playoff schedule. Obviously, a lot of people know what has happened, unless you don't really pay attention that hard. But the college football playoff has announced that in 2026 and 2027, so the next 2 seasons, the playoff schedule will be extended. Right, the national championship is going to be on January 25th, I believe, next season in 2027, and then it's kind of the same around the same time next season or in 2028. Obviously, a lot of people are upset about this, and I want to pull this up for you guys real quick. The real thing about it is, look at this if you can see it. They have the first round starting kind of where it was, the quarterfinals kind of being where it was, but the semifinals, we have a 2-week break between the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and then like another 11 to 12 day break for the national championship. So it's going to take 38 days, I think is the number, between the first round and the national championship game. I believe the national championship game will be the Monday after like the NFL divisional playoffs. It's just it's insane, and I don't really know the solution here other than maybe, you know, moving everything up a week, like getting rid of week 0. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are, well, we have to have rivalry weekend on Thanksgiving. You know, if you feel that way, that's cool. I don't really have that strong an opinion on it, but I do think one thing that I heard, and I heard David Pollack say it, was it's weird that we have to match up the college football playoffs with the bowl games, right? And I think that causes a lot of turmoil. Like, if we could have the first 2 rounds at home, I think maybe we could fix the schedule a little bit. I mean, I know it's also at a weird time during Christmas and everything. A lot of people also say that the season should end on January 1st. Well, in all reality, like, the season, I don't think has ever ended on January 1st. I think maybe it did back in the day before I was around. I think maybe it did before we had the BCS era. But I remember in the BCS National Championship, a lot of times it was during like the week after the New Year. So like January 8th, January 9th is when it seemed to be a lot of the times. And I think even as a recent, even in the 14 playoff, that's when it was, like around that time. I don't know why we can't get back to that. I think if we expand the playoffs, this is obviously going to go deeper. Like, we're going to be playing like the Monday after the NFC and AFC championship games. Competing with the NFL, like, that's just a thing that they are scared of, and maybe it's valid, but it's also kind of just because they need more money, right? Like, they are saying, we're not going to play a game. Like, the problem is, if I pull the schedule back up, you can see that they have the games, the semifinals plays on Thursday and Friday. Like, they're not even holidays. Like, it's not even days that people have off. Like, the fact that we have to play these games on Thursdays and Fridays because they're scared of the wild card weekend or whatever. I think this might even just be like I think this is wild card weekend. It's just sad, dude. I mean, I don't really know the whole solution, like I said, and I'm not, pitchforking around like some people are, like making a huge deal about it. But I do think that we've just kind of got to be a sport as one. We got to do everything on our own here. And I think that if we just had our own playoff system, we took the bowl games out, which will never happen, that would kind of save some problems, and we would just have home games, and there'd be a national championship. We'll find out. There's people that, get all up in arms about, Army, Navy's got to have its own time slot and its own day. Like, there was something signed into administration. Who knows? I just wanted to kind of give you my general thoughts, see what your general thoughts are for the college football playoff schedule. It's an interesting one. I don't know where we go from here. It's not ever going to shorten. Like, we're always going to be in this situation where we just are going bigger and bigger. And if we get the 16 teams playoffs, you would assume we're going to extend a week. I mean, who knows? At some point, we could end up playing on the day of the Super Bowl, like the Saturday before the Super Bowl or the Monday before the Super Bowl. Like, that seems where we're going, and it seems to be never ending. But a lot of people have a lot of problems with it. So that's all I've got for the first episode of CFB Only. I want to say thank you to guys for tuning in. I had a lot of fun right here. I'll be back next Tuesday. We'll have some more segments. We'll probably go over a couple more schedules and everything. This was really fun. I mean, the reason I'm doing this is because I just love college football, and I love making content. I love the YouTube. I'll have my own podcast page here for it to be separate from the Deep Shot podcast one. So make sure you guys subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It'll probably come out sometime tonight. Come back and watch it on the YouTube. We'd love to get some more guests and stuff on here. First one, just kind of getting it out in the open. Again, follow Deep Shot Sports on Instagram and TikTok. I appreciate it, if you already do. If not, tell somebody to do it. We're almost at 3,000. And hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Really helps us. Let's try to get to 500 by the end of February. But for now, I will go ahead and sign off. Again, thanks you guys for listening. CFB Only. We're here all off season long. We'll probably go into the regular season. A lot of things to come. Thanks for paying attention, and we'll see you guys soon.